So in this video today, I'm going to be showing how to remove the forward section of the center console in order to get the gear shift off of the transmission so that I can do a clutch replacement. This shift lifter has to be removed before you drop the transmission, otherwise it's just going to be in the way. And the main reason I'm doing this video is I could not find anything online that shows how to get this console off. So I guess I'm just going to have to teach myself, and hopefully this video will help out other people. Okay, so the first thing that I discovered is there's a couple of rubber caps that go down inside the console where you put your drink cups. And as you can see here, there are three what looks to be either 8mm or 5/16 screws that are holding down that part. So I'll remove them first and see what I come up with next. So as you can see, the whole center console, the rear section completely came out. I was expecting just this piece here to come off, but when I took out these three bolts that were in the cup holders, it was still held fairly firmly in place. And then I discovered there are four more bolt holes down inside the actual storage compartment, and you have to take those out too. And this whole entire unit, it comes out all in one piece. So once you have that rear section out of the way, you'll discover that there are no more bolts actually holding this forward section of the console in. You can see right there in the middle. I know it's kind of hard to see. I don't have the greatest light. But those two bolt holes, they line up with the bolt holes on the front of the rear console. And by pulling up on the rear of it and then giving a slight tug up here on the front, there's just a couple of clips up there. You lift straight up and it pops loose. So now the next trick is get these shifter knobs off. In order to remove the shifter, you have to pull out this little center cap from the shift knob that has your shift pattern on it. In order to do that, you have to find a thin screwdriver, place it in between the cap and the outside rubber on the shift knob, and pry up gently. And as you can see, there's a 13mm bolt that's inside of the shifter. You have to remove that and then it will come off. And you can also see on the side, I bunged mine up a little bit. I probably used a little bit too big of a screwdriver, but I think if you use a pretty thin one and you work it carefully, you can get it out without doing a lot of damage. I've got an old 8-ball shifter I'm going to throw on this as a replacement. And I've decided I really don't have to pull out the transfer case lever, so I'm not going to touch that one. I have to make a slight correction here. The bolt, the nut, it was not a 13mm, it was actually a 9/16. So I believe the information I had was for a newer vehicle. So something in the 2000 and above range, I believe they switched over to the 13mm. There's a light bulb for the four-wheel drive indicator light that has to come out of this forward console. As you can see here, it's just on a little gray plug, and it goes right in that socket there. It's very easy to remove. Just give it a quarter turn counterclockwise and it pops right out. To get the metal shift cover off the center hump in the vehicle, there are several of these 5/16 bolts that go around the circumference. I'll get an accurate count once I start pulling them out. There were a total of 12 screws holding this plate on. There were 10 around the circumference and then 2 more down here in the bottom of this little side plate that comes off. And I ended up having to still pull the shifter knob off of the transfer case lever. I didn't think I was going to have to, but This boot is permanently attached, so I ended up having to take it off just to get that out. And earlier I forgot to mention that when you take the shift knobs off, not only do you have to remove the nut, but the inside of the shift knob itself is also threaded. So once you get the nut off, you got to thread them off as well. Now we're down to just removing the shift lever from the transmission. There are 4 bolts, one on each corner, just below, the shift lever itself. They appear to also be 5/16, so I'm going to go ahead and remove them. Now the shifter is removed, and the tougher part of the job is going to start. Now I have to get up under there, and I got to remove the transmission. And on another note, I put this shifter up into 5th gear before I removed it. I got that advice from another video online. I guess it's better to have it in gear when you're trying to reinstall the transmission. I think it helps line up the input shaft. If it's in neutral and you're wiggling it back and forth, the input shaft might just wiggle on its own. So put it in gear and it ain't gonna wiggle.